Welcome to the Teach Better Talk podcast, your official podcast for the Teach Better Podcast Network, the hub for all things education, brought to you by teachbetter.com. The Teach Better Talk podcast is committed to answering your burning questions through a variety of lenses and bringing new offers to you and your colleagues to help you thrive throughout the school year. My name is Ray Hewart, and we love your questions here on the pod. If you have any questions that you'd love us to consider as topics for future episodes, please share them with us by emailing info@teachbetter.com. Our topic for the week is all focused on how to be thoughtful with AI. Before we get into this topic, I do want to give Chad Ostrowski, our co-founder and CEO of the Teach Better team, a huge shout out because he has a keynote focused on AI that is just taken off. I feel like he's been all around the country with different keynotes that he's been giving, workshops he's been giving on this AI concept. I'm so glad that we can feature this topic here on the pod, and especially with this incredible first guest that's kicking off our week discussing AI. We have Matt Sherrill in the house. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
This is definitely a cool experience for me getting to interview you because you were an educator that I used to work with. And I just feel like I've been like in awe following your journey, you classroom teacher turned like massive leader and voice in the building. Now you have this new role that you're celebrating. It's incredible. You've done a ton.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been exciting. When you reached out, it was kind of like, oh, hey, I've been following you. I've been seeing your stuff on social media. It's nice to reconnect and catch up a little bit. And it's been great.
I think it's always fun to be able to pull in different people from your life into future or different elements of your life. I actually just interviewed Jim Broach on the pod.
Oh.
You guys will be able to see that episode drop here in a little bit. And we talked all about like interview techniques and how to like present yourself well. I'm like, who wouldn't want to hear that from Jim Broach?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I make my hairstyle after him. He was my inspiration.
Yeah. Shout out to all the men rocking the baldness. I love it. So good. All right, Matt, I know that you and I could go back and forth and just catch up because I'm so excited to hear your answers all about AI and the training you've been doing. But I know our community also wants to hear about the work you're doing. So start us off. Who are you? What do you do in education? Tell us the background.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm kind of in this exciting transition right now. I just wrapped up my 15th year in the classroom, and 13 of those years were spent doing ELA at the 8th grade level. And over the years, just kind of got into different leadership roles. I was a building chair for a while, did different coaching, like building-based coaching on new tech products or platforms that we were rolling out in the district. And then this last year, spent a lot of time. I kind of helped get an AI advisory team formed for the district. And so we did a lot of planning and developing some trainings for our staff at the secondary level. And so just really got into that. And then now I'm getting ready to transition into a new role as a regional educational technology coordinator with the Learning Technology Center of Illinois. So basically, a lot of what I was doing at our district level part-time with this AI advisory team, I'm able to do across 21 counties of Illinois and different ROEs and districts, and just kind of help in any way I can, support them in anything ed tech, AI related, all of that stuff. So it's been a fun time. That job officially starts in like 2 weeks. So been trying to get myself prepped as much as possible.
You are going to be great. I was so excited. I saw you featured on Jeff Bradbury's podcast a few months ago, and then I saw that you took on this new role, and I was just so thrilled that you'll be able to provide your insight, provide your leadership style, just the fun opportunities you'll be able to create for different districts in this new role. This is going to be such an exciting opportunity. I know we're talking about AI, but before we transition into any of that, I have 100 questions for you in terms of staying in 8th grade ELA for 13 years. Like, first of all, I think that would be the death of me. Second of all, doing the same subject and same grade level for 13 years. A lot of educators like to jump around. You did not. Why?
Nope.
Why?
Well, I got into it right when Common Core came out. So I was part of kind of a curriculum overhaul. And so we became standards based, curriculum wise. And that was right around the time when I became the building chair for the ELA department in our building. And so then down the road, saw another overhaul where we kind of rearranged some things. And so as every few years, it was kind of switching up a little bit. So that kind of helped. It also helps that I worked with a fantastic team in my building for 13 years. We were the only fully intact team in the building until I just left, from when the building opened. So that made it a little bit easier. And, I never really matured past the age of 15. Fart jokes are still funny to me. So eighth graders are my people.
Oh my gosh, I know there's so many educators that are listening in their car or, whatever you guys are up to doing, listening to the pod with their mouth agape saying, first off, how do you have colleagues that don't leave you? Because the worst thing is when a colleague moves on to something else. And especially when you have that core team that you love working with, it's like, don't rock the boat. Everyone has to stay. But
Yeah.
also, you mentioned, and I know this background from you, that you actually were a part of opening the building. So this was the team that was formed when the building itself was officially opened post construction, and you guys have been there ever since. Do they hate you now that you left? Are you like,
It's
is there a voodoo doll with your face on it somewhere?
well, my two biggest contributions to the team was wordsmithing letters that went out to families and solving everybody's tech problems. So at least half of that I'll still be able to do because fortunately our district is still in my region in my new role. So I'll still be around from time to time and connected, but we all it was very bittersweet. I was sad to leave. I may have teared up a couple times when I was sending my farewell email to the staff and the text to my team. But at the same time, they understood, especially this last year. They're like, this is what you do. Like, this is a perfect fit. As much as we're going to miss you, it just makes too much sense. So they were very supportive, which made it a lot easier.
That's fabulous. On the flip side, then, many teachers that are listening today might be saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe you transitioned into a new role that took you out of the classroom, out of the building. I hate to focus on this, but you did just go through this huge transition. And many, many educators that I've spoken to at least want to know what that experience is like so we can all make the best decision for ourselves with the most information possible. So while I want our educators here to stay in education, there's a lot of jobs in education. You can do a lot of different things. So what helped you realize that this was the right time to transition into a different role and helped you kind of understand that it was going to be okay when you decided to actually pull the trigger?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it was just kind of being in tune with where I was finding my energy.
Yeah.
And, I talked about being a part of that AI advisory team. And so it was a couple times a month or once a month at least. I'd be at our unit office with the team and we're developing plans and trainings and all of this, and then delivering those on Institute days. And I found that I was finding much more energy. I was getting energized by those conversations, by those experiences, more so than prepping for, the next week in class. And so as much as I still loved my students and love what I did, I just started noticing my full-time job was almost getting in the way of what I was doing part-time. And
Mhm.
so that was a big clue for me. Also, this isn't necessarily a reason to leave at all, but when my tried and true every year jokes started getting fewer and fewer laughs, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm losing touch now.
terrible. They always have to laugh at you. That's the whole point of working in a
Right.
middle school.
Oh, and I'll stand there in awkward silence just waiting for the pity laugh before I move on, just to make it as uncomfortable as possible. But no, it really was just finding that this new realm that I was stepping into was energizing me a lot more. I was looking forward to that, finding excitement in that. And so I've always enjoyed leading professional development sessions or presenting different things at institute days. I've always found that to be a comfortable experience for me. I enjoy connecting with people in that way. And so as the years went on, when I found I was, connecting more with the adults than I was with the students in my class, that just was kind of a clue. Again, don't get me wrong, I loved what I did. It was fun. I still have fantastic relationships with my students. It was just all these little things kind of added up, and it was a clue that it was time to move on.
I really value that you use the term clue, because when I speak to educators and they discuss wanting to move to a different role, more often than not, they say that they're seeing clues, but they're all negative. Like, well, I don't like my team anymore. Or I don't like my boss anymore. I don't like students anymore. I don't like having to wake up anymore. I don't like, and there's always something like, I don't want this in my life any longer. So I'm going to move to a different role. And something that I think is a beautiful reminder for everyone, regardless of when you're able to catch this episode, is thinking through, if you are feeling like a change may be soon in your future, within the next few years, trying to look for those clues that are positive. I want this to be more affluent in my life. I want to bring this into my life more frequently because it feels good doing it. I really enjoy it. It brings me energy. That's exactly what it should do. I'm very excited for this new role, and I can't wait to get an update as you start it off.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So you agreed to talk AI, and this is a
Mhm.
very scary concept for many educators. Although I know many of us have dabbled with AI, there seems to be three different types of educators. I know you shared this with me as we got started. When you walk into a workshop or a room of staff that's talking about AI, what are the three types of educators? What are the three little buckets that most of us fall into?
So you obviously have the ones who are already kind of exploring and using this AI stuff. You have those who have heard about it and, are interested in maybe one day when they have time looking into it. And then you have some who are actively pushing against it or ignoring it. And then within those, you have some sub categories as well, like the ones who are already using it. There's some that find out after one of our presentations when we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. They're like, oh, I was only thinking about the good. I guess I didn't think through, just taking a student's paper and plugging it into an AI without their permission. Like, yeah, I guess that's got some ethical shaky ground there. So you have some people who are already using it that are excited, those who maybe haven't jumped in fully, but are still open to it. And then you have those who are a little bit more closed off from it. So those are typically like the three overgeneralized buckets I could point to.
I would love to challenge all of you to think through what bucket you might fit into, because regardless of what bucket you fall into, we can all be more thoughtful. We can all challenge ourselves to be more thoughtful with our use of AI. So we're going to get into this conversation. Stick with us. Quick pause to talk about the Teach Better Admin Mastermind. Are you an educational leader in an administrative role? Whether you be an assistant principal, a coach, a principal, a director of curriculum, or even a superintendent, this group is for you. With weekly meetings, expert guests, and more, bring your problems of practice to this private group and have a conversation with your colleagues around how we can better share resources and be better educational leaders in the field. Head over to our Teach Better Administrator Mastermind to sign up now. You can just show up when you need a little bit of support. I'll meet you there. How can we be more thoughtful as we incorporate AI into our lesson planning, our classrooms, our lifestyle, or anything in between? Matt Sherrill is here to give us some tips and tricks. And there is a whole lot we have the opportunity to talk through. But friends, we won't be able to cover it all here. So don't forget to stick around, as Matt will also share his contact information, his resources, and anything in between that you might need to become more successful in this area. Matt, when we talk about being more thoughtful with AI, what comes to mind as a good direction to begin this conversation?
So for me, typically, when you're being thoughtful, it's not terribly different than other ed tech tools that you might use, right? So thinking about, why am I using this tool? What objective am I hoping to accomplish? And making sure that the way we're using it, we're not using it for the sake of doing it. There is benefit in using certain tools that maybe help with engagement more than, align with pedagogical knowledge or strategies or whatever. But being thoughtful with AI specifically, is there's a lot to think about. You have, the good of, here's how it could provide personalized learning. Here's how maybe it can overcome some of these knowledge gaps between students, accessibility gaps with students. But then there's also the things we need to consider about privacy and protecting student information, especially because these AI tools, I mean, they are data hungry tools. That's why you're seeing all of these lawsuits pop up, right? Because they scraped the internet for this information, and they're kind of running out of their big sources of data. And so they're going to start shifting their view a little bit, and being mindful of how those tools, maybe that were designed for the real world adults, how maybe they don't fit into a K-12 setting because of just the laws around protecting student privacy. But then the other things to consider, um, one of the things that people tend to do that are more resistant to this AI stuff is thinking of all of the things that could go wrong, right? Well, students are going to cheat, and students are going to misuse it in this way and that way. And those are all very important things to think about when being thoughtful about AI. But a question that we tend to ask in our presentations is also, how might students be harmed if we don't teach them AI literacy? So if they're not learning it from us, where are they learning it from? And are they learning the potential pitfalls of AI? I mean, bias is a big one. Um, I'm currently listening to an audiobook right now called Unmasking AI, by Joy Buolamwini. And it's fantastic, all about her journey when she first started using like facial recognition technology as an MIT student and trying to build a tool, and realizing, oh, all of the data that these things have been trained on, they're designed to work best with lighter complected individuals. And so she's, as she was digging through, was finding the fact that these tools are trained on data mostly from the internet, which mostly reflects Western male perspective. There's a lot of baked in bias. And so, how do we prep students for navigating that? If a student is using an AI image generator for a career project, and they keep asking it to create a picture of a doctor, and maybe this is a student of color, but all of the images, or 90% of the images being created, are white men, right? Being depicted as doctors. What is that instilling in them? How is that maybe contributing to their own view of themselves? And so, putting those conversations at the forefront, talking with these students about it, letting them know AIs will hallucinate, is the term, where they just make stuff up. And how do we maintain our own critical thinking? How do we make sure that we're not falling into the trap of absorbing biased perspective? And so, it's really, there's a lot to it, right? In being thoughtful. And that's why this stuff can be so intimidating, because you have all of these things. How do we address cheating? But also, we can't really ignore it. We can't just block it. We can't just tell students not to use it because they're going to use it anyways.
I
So,
think I think you've highlighted something that I know that I've never thought of until this conversation, and I can only assume that I'm not the only one listening. Relating AI to literacy is really interesting to me. We did a whole week focused on digital and media literacy. We brought in news anchors, we brought in experts in the field, and we looked at literacy holistically. AI was never something we dove into. Now, weeks later on the pod, and we're talking about AI, and the first episode comes up, do we have AI literacy? I think that is a concept that, regardless of what bucket you're in as far as accepting AI, is really going to open some minds, because to look at AI as more than just a tool and to better understand that there can be bias really allows for different discussions and different questions to be asked by educators.
yeah, absolutely. And we're starting to see that even at the legislative level, right? You have bills being proposed, like the AI literacy bill. That's a bipartisan bill that was proposed months ago, that is looking at the existing media literacy laws. So, like, potential grant funds that are available for promoting media literacy, folding elements of AI literacy into those existing things. Because what we're realizing is, whether you're choosing to go to a tool like ChatGPT or not, you're still being impacted by AI. We're starting to see it like in Amazon, the Amazon app. They now have the AI chatbot that can give you recommendations and summarize customer reviews and all of that. We're going to start seeing a lot more AI generated media. So that's kind of that bridge between AI and media literacy. I tell people, if you thought we were swimming in misinformation the last election cycle, we're going to be drowning in it this year. And understanding just how it works, and how, before, early media literacy strategies, like, okay, I saw this headline, is this being reported by other sources? You do a quick Google search to see, is this popping up other places? Well, now we can't just rely on that, because I can take an article that's full of misinformation, plug it into an AI chatbot, have it write it 10 different times in 10 very different voices, making it sound like it's from 10 very different people. And then I can do all of that in minutes, and then blast that out to a bunch of different sources that can, manipulate the search engine optimization and all of that, to where now you Google it and it looks legitimate, because, oh, look at these 10 different sources that are reporting this. So, knowing how, a basic understanding of how it works, what it's capable of, what it does well, what it doesn't do well, whether you plan on using it personally or not, having those pieces of information is going to help you navigate this increasingly AI influenced world.
Well, and maybe that's the first challenge. If you are reflecting on this episode and how you can be more thoughtful with AI, I'd love to challenge all of you to maybe take the first step into being more aware of what it's already incorporated in your life. When you reference Amazon and it being able to review customer reviews, I see that, of course, and I don't even realize that it's an AI resource. But of course it is, right? All these customers, the 2,000 people have reviewed these gloves, and here you go. This is what they're saying. It has a good fit, but the texture is not so great, and blah, blah, blah. And that's really helpful for me as a consumer. So I think thoughtfulness first starts with awareness, and then can move into, I love what you just shared at the tail end here, which is, what does it do well right now? And what does it not do well right now? And how can we keep that in mind as we continue our AI literacy? So if I was to ask you kind of that blanket question, and it feels so broad. So Matt, I'm so sorry you came on this episode, because I just have the stupidest questions. this whole week is going to be Ray asking the goofiest things. But what does AI do well, and what is AI really bad at? Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah. So AI is a really good assistant.
Mm.
And so, what I mean by that is where people tend to get into trouble is when they let the AI do everything for them, right? Or, from a teacher perspective, for example, I'm going to have this AI. There's tons of tools out there that will just go through and automatically give feedback and grade student assignments based on a rubric that you upload. And that can save you a ton of time. And that's a great thing in certain situations. But when we fully turn over AI to do the task completely, we're removing the human from the loop. And so, if you've heard about AI stuff, that's the big term that's used quite a bit. The Department of Education and their AI plan that they sent out about a year ago, they reference this idea of being the human in the loop. So let it assist you, but don't give it everything because it can make those hallucinations. Um, One of the very popular examples that gets brought up, and I feel terrible for this attorney because their story gets shared all the time when talking about the risks of this. But there was one attorney in particular found out that ChatGPT does, a really good job of creating a court briefing. And so typed in, here's the thing I'm trying to support, find court precedent that supports that idea, create this court briefing. The attorney had ChatGPT do it all. It was in a minute. They're like, this is fantastic. It looks really good. They turn it in. And then the other side starts going through and they're like, some of these cases you're referring to, like, they never happened. They don't exist. Some of these quotes you're giving of judge opinions, those things were never said. And so that was somebody removing themselves from the loop, right? So keeping yourself in the loop, still using your expertise, your critical thinking to avoid those types of hallucinations. As educators, if we're going to be using AI generated content, it's really, really good at generating content very quickly. As an ELA teacher, I didn't have to spend hours trying to find different articles on similar topics, but at different reading levels. I could take just one, plug it in, and tell it the grade level I wanted it to adjust to, and it instantly rewrites it for me. Short stories was the same thing. Stories that we used all the time, but maybe weren't as accessible to all the students in the room. Now everybody can still be reading the same story, but I have tools that in seconds can rewrite it at different reading levels. So those things it does really, really well. But you as the expert, you as the content expert, um, the authority in the classroom, we need to make sure we're checking that it's accurate, it sounds the way it's supposed to sound, there's not any bias included in there. um, so knowing that it can create things very, very fast, it can help you with lesson plan ideas, it can help coach you in different strategies or different approaches to teaching and learning. It's really good at kind of supporting what you do, but it's not great when we just hand over the keys and let it do everything for us. So that's kind of the balance we need to find as educators.
Well, and I think that that is a beautiful way to start off really looking at this key question of making AI more of a being more thoughtful with this resource is knowing what your part should be in it. And I think that that really allows us to do some reflecting on where AI already exists that we may not even be noticing right now, but then also really seeing how it can be an assistant more than the key employee that many of
Mhm.
us sometimes allow it to be. So stick with us, friends. We are going to wrap up this conversation. I want to make sure you all are able to take Matt Sherrill's contact information because his new gig is going to be full of resources and I know he'll give them to you. So we'll be right back. We have discussed so many elements of AI, and we feel like we haven't even skimmed the surface. We're going to go through some key takeaways that Matt wants you to make sure you think about as we wrap up this episode, and also, of course, give you his contact information so we all can be in each other's PLN. Matt, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I definitely want our community to stay connected to you. But before that point, what do you feel is a key takeaway educators should at least consider as they move forward?
The biggest thing is if you're somebody who either has been ignoring or has been open-minded to this AI stuff, but hasn't taken the time to really explore it, start exploring, right? There's some fantastic resources out there. My go-to that I tell people first is AI for Education is a wonderful platform. They have tons of webinars. They have an intro to AI for educators like mini course you can take that kind of breaks down a lot of the basics. And mostly that being the takeaway, because whether you choose to allow AI in your class or not, students are using it. So being aware of it, understanding it so you can have those conversations as needed is going to be what students need, not just beneficial to you, but it's what students are going to need in their lives, having those responsible, ethical adults in their lives, having those kinds of conversations with them.
So powerful. How can our community stay connected to you? I know that you're a very busy guy with this brand new fancy schmancy role, but we are here as a family and there definitely are going to be questions. So how can our community stay connected?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just look for my name and the picture of the bald guy with the glasses. But I'm more active on LinkedIn than other social media. And then email is always a great place. I shared this on Jeff's show when I did that a while back, that when I listen to podcasts and I hear a guest that I'm like, ooh, I want to know more about that, I have reached out to people. When I've emailed them, and that has made all the difference. And so I would love to be someone who can pay that forward to others. If you have questions, if you want more information, email. I'm not going to ignore you. I will engage with you on that. So email and LinkedIn are probably my two best places to look.
Outstanding. If you guys need any further information on how to connect with Matt Sherrill, please just let me know. I'd be happy to make an introduction or get you any information you need. Huge shout out to Jeff Bradbury, who was able to feature Matt on an earlier episode. And thank you to his podcast being a part of the Teach Better Teams podcast network, where I know many of you enjoy getting new podcasts and listening to new information on a continual basis. Matt, thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love this stuff. So it was fun.